Good morning, welcome back. You're watching Daybreak and thank you for staying with us. The hashtag on X is Citizen Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. This morning with me in studio on my immediate right is the former Makueni County Governor, Kivutha Kibwana. Good morning.
Good morning.
Lovely having you here.
Thank you very much.
And pleasure. Your presence is highly appreciated. Gishira Kibara is former Principal Secretary. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for your time. Much appreciated. And as well as Dr. Kipkurui Chepkwony, the CEO of the Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee. Good morning.
Good morning and
thanks for your time. FCPA Ahmed Abdullahi is the Governor of Wajir County as well as the Vice Chair of the Council of Governors. Gentlemen, your time is all appreciated this morning. We focus our attention on devolution and the new era of governance heralded in by Katiba 2010 since its promulgation, and taking stock, an audit of where we are 13 years later since the first elections in 2013 after promulgation of Katiba. First to you, Governor Kivutha Kibwana. Given where we are at the moment and having served Makueni County for 2 terms, and giving us an inside account of how this has worked, the case of Makueni being just a microcosm of the entire 47 units, has the devolved system of governance lived its purpose?
Thank you very much for that, very important question in terms of where is devolution at. Did it make sense for us to adopt a devolution system? I'm clear in my mind that devolution has really helped this country. In actual fact, because at the grassroots, people get certain services. As a consequence, even the pressures that came onto the national government have decreased. Of course, there are challenges. But if, for example, one looks at the 22-23 State of County Address, because that is the latest one, for 2023-24, 23-24, that has not been done.
Yeah.
But if you look at that in terms of, what are some of the successes that have been posted. For example, when it comes to agriculture, according to the 2023 economic survey, agriculture gives us 21.2% of the overall GDP.
Okay.
And if that is so, because agriculture is a devolved function, it means that the counties are working significantly to make agriculture relatively successful. If you look at the health sector, 66% of about 66% of the workforce, and we have about 190,000 workers in the health sector, both private and public. 66% are people from the county, so that therefore they offer significant services.
Okay.
In actual fact, although the counties and the national government are doing the community health volunteers, but the majority of that work is the counties, and they have now engaged about 100,000 of them, which go to the grassroots. Again, when one looks at from 2014, when devolution, let us say, became operational, the skilled, birth deliveries, they have increased now by about 13%. So that now we are standing 89%. Even deliveries in facilities also have increased.
Okay.
So you can see that even in that health space, a lot of good things are happening, and one can go on and on, even in terms of ECD, the teachers that are there, TVETs and so on. So I think sometimes we don't focus on what has been achieved. We have a tendency to focus on the challenges, like corruption has been devolved and stuff like that. So even though, of course, we will discuss the challenges later, but it is not a good thing to say that devolution has not assisted our country. So I would say, to the governors that, they are doing some good work.
All right. And one of the key ingredients for that successful realization of the full devolution of those functions that you have talked about is resources, because these resources do follow the functions. And from serving as the current governor, Ahmed Abdullahi, coming to you, looking at, taking at an inside look of where we are at the moment, has it lived its full purpose and intent as to why we had devolved resources and power from the center and take it to the Mwananchi?
Thank you, Ayub. I think this is a question that has come up many times. I think it's a question we should not be having. The question we should be having is what has worked and how well and what could work better. Mm-hmm. There is no doubt that devolution has changed lives of Kenyans. The figures speak for themselves. The data is very clear. Prof has referred to some of it. From zero number of teachers paid by counties in 2013, because ECD teachers before 2013 were actually paid by parents, right? And ECD actually existed only in a few municipalities here and there. Mm-hmm. Today we have 47,000 ECD teachers on the payroll of counties, and we have ECD classes in the remotest of places. We had 800 doctors in 2013 in district hospitals. Today we have over 5,000. Mm-hmm. The latest I checked was 5,239. And places that had one doctor for a whole district today have over 100 doctors with over 30, 40 consultants. And this has, facilities moved from about 8,000 hospitals of different levels to 17,000 across the whole country. This has reduced maternal mortality. Mm-hmm. It has increased skill deliveries. We had 1,800 extension officers in agricultural sector in 2013. Today we have over 8,000 of them serving Kenyans. We have tarmac road in places that had never had a kilometer of tarmac as a result of devolution. There are places that have more than quadrupled their water sources. The borehole cover in some of the counties has moved by 400%. So this is devolution. Yes, there are challenges, and we'll talk about those. Yeah. But that devolution has been a game changer that has actually, in many cases, in many of those key performance indicators, quadrupled, tripled in 13 years what we were doing for 50 years before devolution. I think the question should then not be whether devolution has worked. Okay. The question should be how should it work better. Yeah, and we'll talk about the challenges, because also there is a concern on the on-source revenue, the different capacities of the counties, and the Exchequer's timely release of or realization of the money that ought to be going to the counties for the delivery of those services, healthcare, education, agriculture I've talked about. Bwana Piers, given where we are at the moment, and what the two, former governor and current governor, have talked about as to this being the antidote to some of the challenges that were deep lying in terms of development, in terms of progress at the societal level. Going forward then in the foreseeable future, how can that be then made to better work for the people, notwithstanding the challenges that we'll be expounding here?
Thank you very much for inviting me to this forum. I'm a believer in devolution. I believe probably the most significant reform that came from the new constitution was the adoption of devolution. But we also recognize it was the most radical of the changes brought by the new constitution. So clearly we expected resistance. To the change in terms of the center releasing resources to the lower units. And that obviously has slowed down a bit of the impact of devolution. Okay. Issues of wastefulness must be addressed if devolution is to really deliver on the expectations of Kenyans. Issues of efficiency and effective use of resources must be addressed if devolution is to deliver what Kenyans wanted. Okay. But we must acknowledge that probably the biggest benefit from devolution is the public participation that it has brought. So that you have a situation where, for the first time, the citizens have a direct input in terms of the priorities for their areas. It has also increased accountability in the sense that the citizens are very near the people who are making decisions on the use of resources.
Okay.
But where the challenges come is in terms of oversight institutions. Oversight institutions have not really performed the way they were expected to perform. Whether you talk about the county assemblies, whether you talk about the Senate, they have not really performed to the level that was expected when we designed this system. And part of that has to do with very poor political governance that the country continues to experience. The devolution was not just another new system. It was meant to be a radical change from the way we did things, and that has not happened. You see the same mentality of patronage moving from the center to the counties.
Okay, more or less the devolution of the very same challenges that had dotted the central government?
Bad governance practices.
All right.
Quite a number of them have gone to the devolved system. Because if you look at our constitution, it imagined a new leader.
Okay.
It also imagined a new citizen. That was the core of what devolution was about. And you get that from the constitution, all the way from the principles of devolution to even the preamble. It tells you we are moving to a new society, but that has not quite happened.
Okay.
So if you are to really get the full benefits of devolution, we will need to address fundamental issues of integrity, fundamental issues of values, fundamental issues of good governance.
All right. And Dr. Chepkwony, coming to you, of course, the exclusive functions of what's supposed to be provided by the counties and the national government is spelled out in law. And you have been issuing reports after reports and often detailing some of the functions that are not yet operationalized and some transferred but not fully taken over. Give us then a synopsis of what's still pending at the national level. The governor talked about agriculture, healthcare. He talked about those issues as well, given that they have served counties, still serving. So what's yet to be devolved from the center that you can speak about as the CEO of the Intergovernmental Relations Technical Committee?
Oh, thank you, Abdikadir, on that. Now, on the issue of the functions, at the onset of devolution, so to speak, or as soon as the Constitution was promulgated and implemented, as former PS has indicated, clearly the Big Bang Theory is where the direction that this country took, that all the functions that were assigned to the county government and to the national government were deemed to have been transferred. However, subsequent clarification of the functions and key elements. You know, a function is so huge that there are key elements in those functions that needed to be clarified subsequently and resources identified for the attendant function, so that now we go with the principle of resources following the function. So the functions were transferred in principle as assigned in the Constitution. Some resources were transferred following those functions. But there are subsequent clarifications on the functions for additional resources to the counties. So as we speak now, we wouldn't say that there are some functions that are being held at the national government or that ought to have gone to the county governments and have not gone. All of them have been assigned. What we are asking ourselves is either of the levels of government performing a function that is exclusively not theirs, or that is that can be implemented from both levels of government. And if that is the case, is it being done legally? Because there's supposed to be an understanding. If the national government is performing a function that is being assigned to the county government, as the county governments agreed to that, because the law provides a situation where a county government, or county governments for that case, can decide that one of their functions which they ought to be implementing, that they want to allow the national government to implement for or on behalf of that county government or the county governments for a period of time, dependent on the reasons that they would be able to establish and indicate. However, what we are realizing is
that is envisioned in law, and it indeed happened in 2020.
2020, yes.
In Nairobi County.
Yes.
And what then came into place was the Nairobi Metropolitan Services. 4 key functions were transferred to the then NMS-led body. However, is there any other circumstance or an example that you can give where the national government still is performing functions that are exclusively meant for the counties, other than the practical example that we had here in Nairobi?
The issue of Nairobi and NMS is a classic example of the extent that the Constitution provides, gives us leverage for governance. The example of Nairobi has not been done by any other county. However, there are few functions. As we speak now, IGRTC is handling requests by 3 counties that they want some of their functions to be handled at the national government. Murang'a County desires that the village polytechnics, some of the village polytechnics, be transferred back to national government.
Okay.
We also have Mandera, who have also given an indication, and also Garissa, where now we are saying
the same on polytechnic.
On polytechnic and ECDs.
Okay.
All right, and also national government, for that case, has also indicated that they would desire to hand over to Mandera County the construction of secondary schools. So some of these things now, we are at the level that we are saying now we are looking at full implementation of the Constitution. Every level of government is trying to expand the aims of the Constitution for space of service delivery. So for the NMS issue, it was well done. You remember, Ayub, we discussed this when I was still the Secretary General of County Assemblies Forum, when there were issues raised as to why national government is taking over Nairobi. But the discussion should have been, what is the legal process for national government to take over functions of a county government?
The then governor said he was under duress.
But clearly, when you look at the deed of transfer, the processing was well defined within the law. And that is why we have subsequently, as IGRTC, transferred back those functions to the Nairobi City government. So it is just the understanding that needs to be discussed. And what Governor was enumerating here, the Vice Chair of Council of Governors, is at this point in time, if we want to discuss the extent of devolution in this country, is to make every citizen in this country understand what really is devolution. Besides talking about the challenges, I think for the last 10 years, we have been discussing about the challenges that we have faced in devolution. Besides that, then, what is the future of devolution? That is what we are looking at IGRTC to say, have we really fully implemented the Constitution? What P.S. Kibara was talking about, are the governance structures in place? Are the intergovernmental structures in place? Are they working? We need to be able to say then, what is the solution? Besides having this discussion about the challenges, I think 10, 14 years after the promulgation of this Constitution, we should now be able to identify the quick corrections that needs to be done within the structures for governance to be implemented.
And we'll talk about those corrections and the grounds upon which the PS has listed, and I'm sure the former governor and the governor will respond to that. And the fundamental questions that this has raised, given that the very idea of having even the county assemblies was to be in less proximity to the people, so that legislations and accountability issues are brought to forth, and how they have also worked with the county executive is also another fundamental question that we'll be asking ourselves here, and largely what has characterized the devolved system of governance terrain in the country since 2013. The hashtag on Next is Citizen Daybreak. The SMS code is 22422 at Citizen TV Kenya and at Ayub Abdikadir. We proceed with the debate after the break here on the broadcast. Stay tuned.